Hello and welcome to A Little Skeptical. I'm your host, James Brown. Thanks for listening. And now, part 2 of a discussion with Saby Reyes-Kulkarni. He's a cultural critic, he's a music writer, and he does all sorts of journalism. And he's my former podcast partner, and at one point, roommate. Crazy, right? It's pretty sports-centric. We talked a lot about Antonio Brown and his troubles. This was recorded before he was released by the Patriots. And Saby has a pretty grim prediction for the future of Antonio Brown. And I'm not ready to go that far. So here goes. The second of 2 episodes with Saby Reyes-Kulkarni in conversation.
Are you into discussing Antonio Brown at all? Just
well, we could. I mean, you'd like to do that right now?
Yeah. Why don't you introduce it?
Okay. Look, it's hard to know where to start. I mean, all right. So if you back up a moment, right? So, all right. Let's go the timeline. All right. So Antonio Brown has endless amount of conflicts on his old team with the Pittsburgh Steelers, right?
Which we didn't start knowing about in full until the wheels really started to come off last season and things started surfacing.
For sure. But there were rumblings, but it wasn't we didn't realize how it was as bad as it seemed.
Right.
And so much so that they decided that we're going to trade you. Now, it turns out that around the time that that the Steelers were considering trading him, he and his agent heard about the possibility of a lawsuit with alleged sexual assault.
Right.
So from what I understand, this was in February or March when they found out about this. Now, whether he actually did it or not, there are videos of these two together. There's lots of inflammatory text messages out there about this that have all been public now.
Right.
And we don't know what the hell happened. But we know that was happening at the same time. And that he and his agents knew about it. I wonder what that conversation was like. Hey, Drew.
Right. And for people who don't know, we have to put into context who Drew Rosenhaus is and how his stature is in the business of sports agents.
For those of you, if you've seen Jerry Maguire, Drew Rosenhaus is Bob Sugar. High profile, big stars, boisterous, never found a camera that he didn't like, never found a microphone he didn't like, and is known to be an asshole.
Okay.
Yeah, but his clients love him. And
Let me ask you this.
And he loves clients that are a little bit troublesome, too, but are big stars.
I want to ask you this. It seems like Antonio Brown is really making this guy earn his money, though.
For sure.
Because I wonder whether, from Drew Rosenhaus' point of view, whether he was just like, fuck, man, you just totally torched $30 million guaranteed, of which I get, 2% or something? And now we got to go back to $9 million guaranteed. I guess this isn't going to have much currency for people who aren't already aware Antonio Brown, so we might as well just talk about it as if sports people who know. But like I wondered what that was like for him. I know he has an existing relationship with the Patriots, or he's done business with them enough, but I gotta wonder, how the fuck is he comfortable with this?
He's probably not comfortable with it. But it's a public face, as we were talking about earlier, right? So like he's doing a job, and his job is to get his client, make himself and his client as much money as possible. So he's got to suck it up, and he's got to go defend his client on TV. And he's got to stir his client to the best situation possible. And he was in a pretty good situation, I think. I mean, look, the Raiders, I believe, not necessarily because of the talent on the team, but simply because of what was going to happen with this team. They're moving to Vegas in a year.
Right.
They have a very high-profile coach that they overpaid massively, John Gruden.
Who I don't think is going to get anywhere near finishing his tenure. He's not going to make it 10 years as that coach. I think he's out of there in 5.
10 years, $10 million a year. Wow.
Yeah, well, they're going to cut their losses with him, too, because he's a problem, too. But
very high-profile GM hire, Mike Mayock, who I loved on TV. So they basically hired 2 TV personalities to take over the team.
Right.
And the Raiders as a football brand, as a sports brand, is massive.
Right. They're so indestructible as a brand, they could fucking move the team and not skip a beat, right?
As they have 3 times.
Right.
I mean, this is the 4th time.
Right. I mean, the 3rd time was moving back to Oakland.
Yeah, but still.
And I mean,
it's a lot.
Yeah, it's definitely.
So
I feel bad for people in Oakland, but okay. But
I feel bad for them too. Absolutely. I mean, they're supported that team in a very crappy stadium for a very long time.
And they're probably, most of them, I don't know what the number you would guess, but my guess is, this is just off the top of my head, my guess is 80% of those people are going to be watching those fucking games when they move to
higher.
Vegas.
More.
Right. So I mean, that's why this shit happens, because it's like, oh, we know you're going to be on board anyway, no matter what level of abuse we throw your way.
Sure.
But, right. No, Braun was in what appeared to be a good situation. The team was going to be flush with money. Right. What did he sign? A 2-year deal or something with them, or what?
Right. No, it was longer. I believe it was longer.
Okay.
He signed a 2-year deal with the Patriots, with the second one being a team option.
Right. But I mean, I wonder whether
guaranteed.
I wonder whether if he'd stuck that out, whether his next contract would have been ridiculous too, because the Vegas money, you know what I mean?
Well, the trouble is, I'm not sure. I mean, he doesn't seem to be slowing down, but his next contract, he'll be 32. And as a wide receiver, I don't know that he's getting much of that 30 million back that he lost.
Right.
As he thinks he is.
Right. Okay, so you use the key phrase here, which is the window into this madness. What he thinks. I think this guy is clearly batshit crazy. Like, off the fucking scale crazy, like in a way that I find troubling. I mean, it's a little bit entertaining, but it's like, holy shit, this guy is off the deep end. And I don't know whether his situation has gotten psychologically has gotten worse, because we didn't know a lot of what was happening before. But
other than him being a diva wide receiver, like, they're really, like, we didn't realize the depth and the outward weirdness that we've seen in the last, how long?
6 months.
6 months.
Right. Or since the end of last season, when he fucking essentially bailed on, well, I mean, when he did things to precipitate him being benched for the game, the final regular season game they played where they still had a chance to make the playoffs, and showed up in a mink coat and then bailed early on before the game was over.
And then appeared on an episode of The Masked Singer.
Well, but that had been taped prior. They aired that capitalizing on the fact that he was in the news because of the controversy. But that had been taped before. It wasn't like he went into the show right after. That would have been really funny.
Yeah.
But this is the paradox with this guy. Ryan Clark, before these sexual assault allegations came to light last Monday, Ryan Clark said, of all people, one of his most vocal critics over the years, right, said, no, he'll do well in New England because he does know how to show up on time. He can when it's expected, when he's not empowered to not do it. But if you give him the impression that you'll cut him some slack, then he'll, of course, completely run roughshod. My thing was, when he signed with the Patriots, I was like, this is bizarre beyond bizarre because that is the last place I think this guy can survive. And even today, I saw highlight footage where he caught a touchdown and jumped into the stands backwards. And I'm like, I don't think that's the way they do shit.
Going to be pissed.
What's that?
Belichick's going to be pissed.
Exactly. So it's like this guy does not, you can't reach this guy. He does seem to exhibit narcissistic personality disorder. Not just like traits, like the kind of guy that no matter what, like he'll burn your house down and then find a way to blame you. And he'll be telling the truth. He really thinks it's your fault. People have been talking about this dude like, oh, he needs to be a team player, blah, blah. It's like, there's no logic to the way this guy behaves. Now, this takes a much more serious turn. And I already thought this was a serious situation. I've been saying to you, and I'm going to say this on the record, when the news came out that he had thrown furniture off like a 12th or 14th story, whatever it was, balcony, and he was accused of almost hitting a toddler that was down on the ground floor outside in the courtyard or whatever. Now, that could be people trying to capitalize too, but just the fact that you're throwing furniture with no regard to you could have easily killed somebody. When I first heard that report, I said, this dude is going to be dead in 5 years. Like,
and I think this is where you've gone a little bit off the deep end.
He is a hurricane of destruction, like I've never witnessed before. And I haven't been following sports as long as you have, but god damn, this guy is like troubled.
If Dennis Rodman's still alive,
yes.
Brown is still
you know
alive.
What's funny is Whitlock called him the Dennis Rodman of football, which I love. I thought that was perfect, actually. And then they showed a picture on like some footage on Speak for Yourself when Dennis Rodman had the bridal outfit on.
Yeah, he wore a dress.
Oh my god!
Absolutely.
Oh my god! Wow. You know who I think is the only coach on earth who could handle this guy, but unfortunately he's not a football coach.
Phil Jackson?
Yes, exactly. That's if Phil Jackson were a football coach and still in his prime, he'd be the perfect fucking fit for this dude. I do not think Bellichek will handle this right. Or I don't think they can fit together.
Yeah. I mean, between Rodman's massive ego and Jordan's massive ego, and, Scotty was not as much of an egomaniac as those dudes, but he had a pretty big ego also. He's juggled a lot. And between Shaq and Kobe's egos, geez, he could probably handle his ego.
But, I mean, he's clearly troubled. Even before the sexual assault allegations, I thought it was absurd that he ended up on the Patriots. The way he was celebrating also when he found out the Raiders released him, like, what the fuck
let's even back up a beat before that. The video that came out a day or two before.
Oh, my God. amazing production value, so I got to hand it to whoever he hired.
Well, he's got a social media team. I've now dug into his YouTube page.
It's good.
He has invested. He or Rosenhaus or both have played into the Gary V playbook of social media marketing. Where
no, and it obviously is working. But dude, that video was kind of I was like, wow, man, this is fucked up.
Okay.
This guy is fucked in the head.
So for the non-sports fan, just envision this scenario. Your boss calls you and says,
or your manager,
right, calls you, says, you know what, you've been really fucking up, and I think you're just misunderstood. I love you. I think we can make this work. Just put your helmet on and come to work. All right? And you decide to secretly record him and then have your video team, has to be more than one person. No way that's one person.
Right.
Record you listening to it, mixing it with footage of you visiting Oakland, going into the Oakland Coliseum for the first time. Beautifully shot stuff. And you saying, it's my life.
Yeah. And I couldn't tell whether that was his way of saying, no, I'm ready to do this now. No more games.
Well, that's one way to take it. But his behavior says that wasn't afterward. You know?
Right. His behavior says it wasn't. But again, we can't ascribe sense to somebody whose internal logic might be so far off. This is the thing I wonder. Has he gotten worse than what he was before?
That's a really good question because I'm very unsure. Because what we know is that not a whole lot of rumors come out of Pittsburgh. Or Pittsburgh. Not a whole lot of rumors come out of Pittsburgh. It's not like New England or Boston sports teams where there's rumors all the time. And when a player leaves, Boston is notorious for this.
Sure,
whether it's the Patriots or the Red Sox or the Celtics.
Or the Celtics.
Yeah. Oh, you leave, every terrible story about you will come out in the next 48 to 72 hours. You will be
Well, the Red Sox did it to the manager. The Red Sox did it to Terry Francona.
Absolutely. It's
ridiculous. And released details of his daughter being on medication or something, right?
Unbelievable, right?
That was very much a low blow. Yeah. That was...
Pittsburgh's not like that. And in fact, when there's tension, after you leave Pittsburgh, it's kind of weird. Even the Bradshaw Ben Roethlisberger beef that's been going for Ben's entire career has it was uncomfortable, and from what I understand, leadership within the Steelers have tried to squash it. We are a family kind of organization.
Right.
So we haven't seen a flood of things come out, but we have seen more things come out surrounding Antonio Brown than most other people who leave.
I just wonder. He looks like somebody who's having a psychotic break to me.
You think it's that bad?
I think it's headed there, dude. And I'm not obviously I'm not a psychiatrist.
It would be very interesting to have a psychiatrist's opinion on this.
But there are multiple media voices who are like, we don't know if this guy's not well. And I'm shocked that the NFL infrastructure and of all teams, the Patriots, wouldn't take that into account. This dude is fucking erratic. And the instant he feels slighted, what the fuck is he going to do? But
he's going to lash out publicly.
Right. And which is antithetical. That's anathema in New England. However, they seem to be Brady seems to be going out of his way to babysit or cater to the guy. Like, he watched the first game against the Steelers with Giselle at Brady's house.
Yeah. But
So that's
Brady has an incentive there.
Of course he does. Of course.
And
of course.
Brady's headed toward the end.
Right. And here's this like amazing thoroughbred of a player. Not to say that the black player is an animal. I'm just saying, like, if you're a quarterback.
I mean, Tom Brady's a thoroughbred also. Come on.
Right.
Yeah.
But he's an aging thoroughbred.
Yeah.
And here's this guy, like, he could be, he looked like he was on pace to potentially be the greatest ever.
Certainly
That's another thing here that I find tragic. Like, I'm praying that somehow this guy stays on track with his career because, like, his fucking numbers were like, wow, man. Like, and just watching him play. See, this is the thing. He and Roethlisberger had on-field chemistry. Mm-hmm. Whatever they personally, they had incredible on-field chemistry. And I don't think he's going to get that anywhere else, especially in New England where they're not going to target him all the time. This is I don't know what could potentially rescue this guy's like career. And now with these assault allegations, this is like way more serious even than it was. And I really thought the guy, he's having some sort of like breakdown. And he's like decreasingly rational, it sounds to me. That video to me seemed like, whoa, this guy is not attached to reality the way you need to be to function. That's what I felt when I watched that. I was like aghast at like how he thought that could in any way serve him at all.
I don't know that he was thinking.
Right. So it's like I feel like this guy needs an intervention of some kind, like in a major way. And I feel like the Patriots are just like such exploitative scum that they don't give a fuck, man. Like he's just, it's just so gross to me. Like I don't know this. I don't know what kind of conversations they have behind closed doors, but it just seems really exploitative, like ruthlessly so.
I'd agree with that.
And not Tom Brady specifically. I don't put him in the same breath as them, like necessarily. But man, dude, like, and the way they're just like basically saying "fuck you" like to the whole world. Like, first of all, how on earth is he not on the commissioner's exempt list yet?
Well, they claim the investigation is still ongoing. They're going to meet with the woman who accused
the accuser tomorrow.
Tomorrow, I believe. Yeah. So they thought it happened a little suddenly, which didn't seem right to me. Didn't make much sense to me. But
you mean that she accused him?
No. It didn't make sense to me that they felt like it seemed like they put guys on the exempt list for a lot less.
Right.
That they didn't need more evidence. Maybe the fact that it's a civil matter. Maybe that's it.
But the PR blowback from their point of view, first of all, they could have put him on the exempt list for how he left Oakland and the way he was behaving just on that alone.
Possibly, yeah. I could see that.
So, what the fuck is going on here that, like, there must be something they know.
Or they're not certain of her claims, or they think something's off about the situation.
Which I think I feel that way even just from the little bit that I know. Something feels off.
Or a third scenario, it's the Patriots. They have a long checkered history with the Patriots.
Yep, of letting them. Right, and the fact that Kraft wasn't disciplined or suspended for his indiscretion there is fishy.
He was found in a massage parlor that was linked to human trafficking.
And the former owner is linked to Trump, by the way. But so yeah, I mean that's fishy, and this seems right that they're somehow like bending the rules or whatever for the Patriots.
Well, maybe because remember they did come down on the Patriots on after
Deflategate.
Deflategate, and the thought is maybe they were too hard on them. I think that's ridiculous, but I think that was kind of maybe they are taking it slower. Maybe they're slower playing it. But I'm just like I am spitballing here because it doesn't make much sense for them not to put him on the exempt list, figure out what's wrong, and then deal with it afterward.
Right.
That seems to be their pattern.
Right. Yeah.
And it's strange, like everything else about him, in this whole scenario.
And I don't know whether, like, this guy seems to have such an amazing capacity for destruction that Whitlock said this. He tweeted this when they announced that they signed him. That it was that same day. I think it was a Saturday. Either I think maybe it was a Friday night or something. No, it was a Saturday that the
Raiders released Saturday morning. Him. Yeah.
Right, and then within hours the Patriots signed him, which is suspicious already.
Yes.
But Whitlock said, "I hope he destroys their whole culture. I hope he brings them down." And I kind of am hoping that's the case because there's a hubris there. There's like a fucking arrogance. Like we can take anybody. It's like of all the people. So this is weird, strange because like of all the people who might be able to tame this guy, Bellichek seems like maybe he could. But of all the people who could potentially bring harm to the Patriots' like bulletproof structure, it could be him.
Could be. Yeah. Go ahead.
No.
I don't have. I have a. I think it would I think he knows the time is ticking, right? And he knows he needs another big deal to make up some of the money that he lost, whether it's from the Patriots or from other teams. Likely not from the Patriots because that's just not how they roll.
Right.
So perhaps he'll be on his best behavior.
If he's capable of that, I mean, but then with these allegations swirling around him,
yeah, it might not be enough. Like if they're, especially, I mean, and I mentioned to you this privately, if there is another accuser, if he has done this more than once, or he's being accused of doing this more than once, even, you could have a scenario where no one wants to touch him.
Right. Well, I would think there's a lot of people that don't want to touch him already based on how he left Oakland. Although Chris Carter said there will be a team crazy enough to try it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the Cowboys make perfect sense. The Redskins make perfect sense. Like I think a team like Buffalo would not do it just because even though they kicked the tires on him in the offseason, I think that I don't think they realize the depth of his personality, to put it politely. And I think that a lot of teams would probably err on that side. I think if the Bengals were still under Marvin Lewis, they probably would have done it.
Huh.
Remember they had no Chad Ochocinco, and they brought in Terrell Owens toward the end.
Right.
Right. Not to mention Vontaze Burfict.
Right.
And countless other reclamation
Pac-Man
projects.
Jones.
Pac-Man Jones is another one, But maybe somewhere with a personality that he respects, and I don't know who that is. Maybe it's a star quarterback that he respects. Could conceivably sign him and pay him. But my prediction for him in 5 years is not him to be dead. I'm a little bit more bullish on him. I think he'll be the star of a pregame show.
I was going to say, a pregame show?
Yes. He's not an in-game analyst.
You think this guy will show up?
Well, Deion Sanders shows up. Michael Irvin had a bad coke problem. He showed up.
I know, and Michael Irvin also slashed another player on the Cowboys with a pair of scissors.
Yeah.
Because the rookie wouldn't get out of his get out of the barber's chair.
Mm-hmm.
That's, I think, worse than, that's terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, as so many former players have said, look, there's people in football teams, in locker rooms that are like fucking really fucked up, like people, right? But
another former Patriot comes to mind.
You talking about Aaron Hernandez?
Aaron Hernandez, of course.
And I mean, troubled is a better way of putting it. But see, the Patriots, there was that article, Gangster in the Huddle, that ran in Rolling Stone. Did you read that?
Yes.
I did not. But it was referred to me by a friend who pointed out, he goes, this article talks about how much they actually did know.
Yeah, and they did not care.
Right? And it doesn't necessarily seem like they gave him the support to steer away from it. So another point Jason Whitlock made is that, so somebody clapped back at him on Twitter and said, well, if the Chiefs had signed him, man, you'd be jumping for joy. He goes, okay, maybe I'm being a little hypocritical. But he said, I feel like Andy Reid would have tried to make this guy a better person or live better. Bellichek is just interested in the football component.
Well,
and I think that's fair.
And there's some history of that. I mean the Michael Vick scenario comes to mind.
Right.
And Andy is sort of like known as, like, Belichick's not known as a mentor around the league.
Right.
Andy Reid is.
Right.
When you hear Belichick's, coaches from his staff that's gone on to other places, they don't really glow about him as a person.
He doesn't mentor them either.
And after they leave, he definitely doesn't mentor them. He definitely doesn't. Andy Reid's still talking to Sean McDermott in Buffalo, to Ron Rivera in Carolina, to Matt Nagy in Chicago.
Right, he's a human being.
He's beloved by both players and coaches that work for him, and coaches that coached with him.
Right. So that tells you something. This is wild to me, man, that they took a chance on him. And I know they said, $9 million. They probably structured the contract with incentives and they don't really have that much to lose, blah, blah, blah. But like, just the fact that they think this guy can work in their system, and they've done it before, but I don't see it. I just don't. I think this guy is going to do something really fucked up and it's going to blow up in their faces. And I'm not hoping that, because I would love to see him have another 4 historically great seasons and have a body of work. I would love to see this guy go down in history as like, God damn, what an amazing streak that was, right? But like, something's really wrong here. And the moment he feels aggrieved and starts bitching about it on Instagram, what the fuck is he going to do then?
What's really interesting? I just pulled up Antonio Brown's YouTube page. There's no new videos from New England.
No, but he posted a workout from the TB12 facility. It may be on Instagram instead of YouTube, but he did post.
Yeah, but
the day after those allegations came out, he's like, "Oh, the devil may be trying to hate and bring me down."
The TB12 facility is not New England's
true.
facility.
That's true. So maybe he's playing along. He might be a fucking mad genius. I don't know, man.
Maybe.
Like
Or,
he certainly does seem to know where the boundaries are that he can get away with things and where he can't.
or maybe Belichick said no.
Maybe.
You can't have your camera team follow you here.
I would assume that's one of the first fucking things they said to him. You know? Like, we don't do that here. So, yeah. What you think he's going to end up as like a pregame, like what Reggie Bush was doing for a while?
Oh, Reggie Bush is still doing it now.
He's doing it for college now.
Yeah.
With Urban, right?
Yeah.
Right. So, and I think he's really good at it. I love Reggie Bush as a media guy. But you think Antonio's going to end up there? What do you see for his football career?
I think he's gonna bounce around the league. It's gonna look a little like Jerry Rice at the end, Terrell Owens at the end, and many great wide receivers toward the end. Where, like, he's already on his third team. I could see him on his fourth and fifth team, and I think I don't think he reaches the heights that you hope he will.
You think he would have had he stayed in Pittsburgh?
I think the odds are better. I think that there's a loyalty to how there's a whole other more involved subject that I could go into on this one, but I kind of compare what he did until what happened with Carmelo Anthony.
Okay.
Where there's a moment where you have a lot of power, but you didn't realize the power in loyalty. And that, if you became the greatest player in Denver Nuggets history, that when you're at year 15, 16 and you're on the downside, there's no way they're cutting you.
Right.
They're going to take care of you to the end.
Yep.
They're going to bring you back, even if you stayed longer. You didn't leave the way you left. Like with the Dwayne Wade situation.
Yep.
They
sure.
Pat Riley said he felt bad about it. He wanted to make up with the greatest player in the history of their franchise.
Yep.
But when you leave the way that Carmelo left, where you're forcing the Nuggets' hand, and then you force the Knicks' hand, or the way that Antonio Brown is now, you burn a lot of bridges.
Yeah, even with people who aren't personally invested, they're not going to build the bridge.
No.
Like, even with people who you didn't have a relationship with, and at that point, they're going to stay away. Yeah, I think he's going to realize how good he had it. Now, I think Ben Roethlisberger is a toxic presence, and almost as bad as he is.
Because of his accusations? Because he throws guys under the bus?
Leaving that aside, I just think he's a passive-aggressive.
Oh yeah, he definitely is.
Shitbag, basically. And that has nothing to do with the accusations. It's just how passive-aggressive he is and how unwilling he was to take blame and all that shit. And like the one thing that came out where like somebody accused him of like intentionally sabotaging a play because he didn't like what Todd Haley called, like shit like that. I also don't think Tomlin is the right personality to deal with the people he had to, like having people like Roethlisberger and Brown and Bell and all those things. Like I just don't feel like Tomlin. This is from the outside looking in, obviously, but to me, his like way of speaking might be like appealing at first, but after a while of hearing that year after year, I can see it just getting sort of tuning it out. It just doesn't have any.
Well, that's
sway.
That's most coaches, though.
Yeah, I agree, but I don't think he had a handle on that situation nearly as much as he should have.
Just about no one can keep a handle on a situation for longer than 10 years.
Right. I think that somehow that could have been managed better is the sense that I get. And if I were the Steelers organization, maybe you would have tried to keep. First of all, the fact that they lost Bell and Brown 1 year apart, to me, is like Oklahoma City and the talent they had. Like, that team should have definitely won like 2 Super Bowls, if not more. And people always point to, oh, but Tomlin's the second most winningest coach, besides Bellichek. It's like they fucking underachieved. That team should have definitely won a couple Super Bowls. Like, they had that much talent. And I just think yeah, you're probably right that he bounces around and his career just sort of slowly, and teams get tired of him. They try him, and then they get tired and release him or trade him, and that's a wrap. If his mental health issues don't catch up, or if these allegations don't bring him down.
Yeah, I think something tells me they won't.
And what is that specifically?
It's gut feeling.
Okay. Did you read? Here's another piece I didn't read. Did you read Jesse Washington's piece from September of last year? So it's a year old. For the Undefeated.
No.
Okay, I'll send you a link. Whitlock has been pointing to that. Whitlock says that this guy, this journalist was bringing some of these things to light last year.
Possibly. It's also very funny for Jason Whitlock to suggest anything from the Undefeated.
I know. Given
the fact that he was fired,
right
before the whole thing began.
He was their founder, right?
Basically, I think he came up with the name.
Yeah. Well, that's big of him. But do you think Brown finishes the season with the Patriots?
Yes.
And at least makes it. You do. You really think this guy will hold it together?
Yes.
And again, this is the paradox of this guy. No one ever questions his work ethic. That's the strange part about it, right? Like, so he's legendary for how hard he trains and works and all this stuff. But I don't think he's the kind of guy that studies the playbook, because as much as is required in New England. You think they don't re-up on him next year for next season?
They absolutely will
not. Do you think that Bellichek tries to make another play at getting rid of Brady this year, or after this season?
I think that by mid-season, we'll see more cracks in the foundation.
How so?
We already started to see it last year. He started strong, but as the NFL, it's a long, demanding season physically, and you're going to take a lot of bumps and a lot of hits, no matter how much you protect the quarterback. I think that last year Brady was a little slower to the trigger finger. He was worried about taking hits. It's not just me saying it, it's a lot of analysts also.
So once you start to see that, the drop-off can be precipitous.
It can absolutely be precipitous. In fact, the fact that he has started this year so strong is kind of mind-blowing. But he also, the decision-making last year by the Patriots said how they thought about him internally. They were a run-heavy team on the way to that title.
Yeah.
And the fact that they went to that with Gronk and Edelman still on the team, 2 Hall of Famers at receiving positions, says that they have less faith down the stretch in Brady.
So is this his 20th season he's about to start, or is this his 19th?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's remarkable.
Do you foresee a scenario where Kraft convinces him to retire,
No.
like offers him a stake in the team or something?
No.
Why?
By the way, people got to stop this offering stakes in teams thing. That's not going to happen.
Or just like says, look, you'll be a Patriot for life this way. Yeah. I'll offer you a gig as like an ambassador.
Oh yeah, be like a Dan Marino type figure.
Or even a Magic Johnson type figure.
I mean, they're similar in terms of right now their current roles with their teams. Neither of them have any. Magic did have power, but he no longer does. And Dan Marino was offered power. He turned it down years ago, and now he's involved with the team in terms of, just like being a godfather kind of figure,
Right. So, I mean...
So I think that's the idea. He doesn't need it. And we know what Tommy's dreams are. He wants to be, a Tony Robbins kind of guru guy.
That is on its own
weird.
So bizarre.
TB12 plan.
TB12 is the guy basically like a quack.
He absolutely is. Total quack.
And the fact that the whole thing with like Bellichek banning him from the play, this is all very, very strange. Like
they're a very weird team.
Yes. But do you think it's possible? I mean, do you think he's really taken as little money as he has? I mean.
Yes. I do.
You don't think there's a chance that like Kraft has some fucking, I don't know.
There's similar questions about Dirk Nowitzki, right? Because Dirk took a lot less money to stay with the Mavs so that they could have swings at free agency and swings that were unsuccessful repeatedly.
But you think it's that simple that he just understands?
I think that I think there's a weird psychological thing between him and Bill.
Could you elaborate? Like,
I think that some of the reporting that Bill would never allow Tom Brady to be named Patriot of the Week. You know what I mean? As small and petty as something like that is.
No, but it is psychological warfare in a way.
It's just like, I'm going to in order to control this team and the situation, you have to control the quarterback, especially when it's one of the all-time greats.
Right, and Brady is also the type of person that will tolerate that kind of treatment, whereas other star quarterbacks would have been out of there or would have said, look, like Aaron Rodgers would have said, fire the coach.
Yeah, and others have made that move.
Right, but this guy thrives on inadequacy or on being doubted. He wants people to tell him he sucks. He's a 6th-round draft pick, just like Brown.
Absolutely. So that's probably how they feel, why they feel connected.
Right. And he's not the guy that like walked in there thinking he's going to fucking be the greatest ever. And to be honest, he has been lucky. I mean, look, people get offended. I've heard players say that, there has been some luck involved.
A lot.
Yes. Yeah, yes. And even beyond luck, just things breaking his way that shouldn't have.
Even that injury back in 07, 08 should have.
To Bledsoe?
No. To him.
No. Right. Okay, yeah.
When his knee, I think it was his knee that was blown out. He should not have come back as strongly as he did. That's the kind of injury that a lot of people have, and they're just never the same. And he reached higher heights. And that's, I think, in the long run, I think there's going to be questions about him and steroids.
Oh.
Because, like, I feel like this quack doctor that's around him, the amount of Patriot players, Julian Edelman in particular.
Right. And Gronk, too.
Gronk.
Used him for a while.
Others who have been popped. It's not that it's impossible that Brady didn't. And it's not like Brady's jacked. But, like, I wonder, like, things are a little too neat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, what he's doing is not supposed to be possible.
Yes, that's true. It's not supposed to be humanly possible. And
so,
yeah, I hope to God that one day all the fucking truth, because steroids in football is not nearly, doesn't have the same stigma as in baseball. I mean,
I don't think the league cares.
Look, I mean, the punishment these guys are taking.
Yeah. And they want to give them more.
But I would be so delighted if one day it all came out that this was a fucking big scam all along. And what Patriots fans would say is like, well, you just don't like it. You just don't want to accept that somebody is that good. You just don't want to accept that people can achieve, and that's what really rubs you the wrong way. But that's not it. It's not it.
It's because they're assholes.
Well, it's also because they've just gotten breaks. Now, Seattle and the Falcons gave those games away. Although I don't think the play call, that controversial Pete Carroll play call, it actually wasn't as bad as people make it out to be. I've looked at counter arguments to it. The Seahawks were 1 for 5. No, they were 1 and 5 the whole season, running the ball in that same situation. But I feel like the Falcons and Seahawks were like right there on the verge of winning those games. I don't. That's their fault. You know what I'm saying? But the whole Tuck rule thing and even the call last year that they got out of the AFC Championship game when he threw in the interception that would have lost the fucking game. Like just. So I just hope that there's a whistleblower somewhere, but we may never get that. You know?
Or we may never have someone who actually pays attention to them.
I mean, 20 years of sustained dominance in football is like unheard of. There's nothing even close to that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That's why, I mean, Bellichek is, I hate to say it, but, he's that good, Like, it's begrudgingly. I can't stress how begrudging it is. I am a bitter, angry Bills fan. So.
Well, but and here's the other thing. The fact that he hasn't mentored other people, maybe because he doesn't want them to compete with him.
Maybe that's the thought, but still,
But that would have been better because then he would have had disciples spreading his. No, that's a bigger legacy, I think, to leave other people to change the paradigm where other people implement what you introduced.
Actually, I think there's another thing going on there. Have you seen the two Bills?
No.
Do you know what it is?
No.
It's you know who Bill Belichick's mentor was?
Oh yes, of course. Parcells. Yes, I have to see that.
Watch these two people in the room together. Oh my God. Good God. It's talk about two men that are so similar and so stubborn and that love each other and hate each other so much. They're awkward. They hate talking about their feelings. And that, in the end, obviously, Parcells feels to this day betrayed by Bellichek. And
right.
I think the thing is, that betrayal, Parcells means so much to Bellichek that perhaps he just doesn't want to feel that sting.
Well, and we have to say, Bill Parcells got his 2 Super Bowls with Belichick as his defensive coordinator. So, and that, like Belichick has far outshined Parcells' achievements.
Well, here's my counter argument.
Please, I want to believe a counter argument.
The counter argument is when you build one system with one Hall of Fame quarterback versus building 3 different teams into playoff teams and one champion, obviously, 2 different championship teams, but 3 different teams making them contenders,
right,
is harder.
Okay. You think?
I think it's easier in a way. Obviously, it's hard to sustain it over that amount of time. That's the most impressive part with Bellichek. And it's win different ways. That's incredibly impressive. But
right.
It's tough. It's easier when you have the right management and the right quarterback. And some pretty dope coordinators yourself.
But also, he's in a situation where he's also the GM, which means he has
complete control.
He has complete control, which means he's in the right situation where somebody gave him that, but also he's made do on it. I mean, he's doubly talented. Right?
Well, and also he's got the right owner that can put up with his bullshit.
Right. And also he's got a ruthlessness. Now, when he was the Browns coach, though, he was much more animated in his press conferences and all this stuff. Like, who is this real guy? Is he really like a fucking sociopath who has no feelings or what? Like, I heard somebody say, former player say that Belichick sent him a note or showed up at his mother's funeral or something. It wasn't a Patriots player.
Yeah.
Oh, was that Boomer?
I don't know.
I think it was Boomer Esiason said that.
When did he catch Esiason?
But still, it's like not at all what you'd expect. I mean, and he brings such an inhumanity to. This is what I don't like about it's smart, but it's inhumane. Like there's something about even that fucking shit he tried against the Ravens that year in the playoffs where they were substituting players, and then they implemented a rule the following year. That's something about that I just don't. And I know cheating is part of the game, in sports.
Well, he looks for every loophole possible.
That's just gross to me. There's something about. I don't find that appealing or smart. I find that just kind of like despicable, right? And I just don't know whether the guy is actually like what we see on camera, but they'll throw your ass to the fucking dogs later. And I wonder why other teams haven't been able to adopt some of their principles and put them to use. It's been 20 years now of having them as an example. Why hasn't someone else been able to export that same philosophy?
I think it's ownership. I mean, this is one of those Amin El Hassan great lines where he's like, people want to rant about the GM, they want to rant about the coach, they want to rant about the players. What they really should be ranting about is ownership. Like, if you have a stable owner who believes wholly in walking in lockstep with the people who are running the franchise and has made the right decisions on both on the business side and on the side that, I think it's similar in media, on the side that actually does the content that, or in this case, puts together the package. You're capable of way more than an unstable situation. And the Spurs in the NBA are similar in this way.
Yes, they are. They are.
And that Pop is gruff, but the people who know Pop love him.
But I wouldn't say the same about the people who know Belichick don't love him, though, right?
Depends on who he's talking to.
Or they love the experience of having played with him. I think, but
yeah. So I think
yeah.
Pop has become more of an endearing character than Belichick ever was, or will be. But I think there's the sustained success when you know you have smart people around. Is I think a lot of that is packed into having stable ownership. And I think I think that's why in the end I am bullish on the Mavs too, where I think they have a coach that they know is really, really good. They have a GM that's pretty good, and they have ownership that's stable and will give them every tool at their disposal, top flight tools to get their shit done. And as long as they're all in accord and they believe, everybody believes. I think the odds of them becoming successful and staying successful are higher than those who don't have those things.
I'll leave you with this question. Skip Bayless, some of these sportscasters are like fantasists. They want, it's almost like they're writing fiction, but he and Shannon Sharpe both insist, there's this narrative out there that they are always banging this drum that like Belichick wants to prove that he can win without Brady. How much truth do you think there is to that? I've never seen any evidence. But I wonder how much those guys, because those guys must know their legacies are so intertwined. There must be something. I don't see any need to argue like which one is more responsible. Without each other, I don't think they could have done it. Or maybe Belichick could have done it without Brady. Certainly not the other way around, I don't think. Right? That's my guess, right? But like, do you think this is something, again, pure speculation, that actually matters to this guy?
Probably.
Interesting.
I think he's an egomaniac. I think he is obsessed with being the greatest ever. I think that, and also he has a philosophy that has worked at every other position on that team. Every other position. And there's only one that it hasn't worked on.
Oh, right. So maybe Skip is right then.
So I think it's not like something revolutionary that Skip and Shannon, have thought up, but I think they're onto something, and that Belichick is a tinkerer. He's all about his process. It's his dogma. It's what I kind of hate about him sometimes, is that he's obsessed with his own dogma. And I think he probably says, hey, I picked one Hall of Fame quarterback. Why can't I pick two?
Right.
And he thought he picked two with Garoppolo.
Right.
And and also, we know that he has a strong affinity for Josh McDaniels.
Right.
And he is the coach in waiting there.
Yep.
And
that's the one person we would say he has mentored, right?
Well, in his way, right? He's opening his world to him. So I think in order to sustain success, they're going to have to turn over that position before the position turns on them.
Now, after the Super Bowl that they lost to the Eagles, where he dressed Malcolm Butler and inexplicably only used him in one play, a special teams play, of course there was a lot of speculation the next day, what the fuck was that all about? And Shannon Sharpe predicted, this is going to end ugly. Now, they seem to right the ship, and then they won last year. But there did seem to be like something brewing
It's going
there.
to end ugly.
Okay, please tell me what you foresee.
I think it's
because it seemed that way at the time. Like that was fucked up, and still mysterious. Like nobody has ever really gotten to the bottom of it. And here's the thing: before I give you the floor, so many people were like, "Oh, who am I to question the great Bill Belichick?" Well, Chris Carter came out and said he cost them the game, and other people did as well. Skip Bayless did as well. Just because you're fucking brilliant doesn't mean you're not susceptible to hubris or bad decisions, right? Doesn't mean your own brilliance can't get the better of you. I think the guy thought he was invincible, and like, you know, I don't know what he was thinking, but it clearly seemed like a bad decision, right? I mean,
yeah.
When you look at,
but I don't think that's how. I think it was a bad decision, but I don't think that's how it's going to end poorly.
Right, I'm just saying he's not immune to making
he's not infallible
to bad judgment. Just because he's brilliant, a brilliant tactician, doesn't mean he can't have bad judgment or even be full of himself to the point where it brings him down. Okay, so what do you see?
It's not about him and Tommy. It's about him and Kraft. And the cracks in the last few years between him and Kraft are signs of the Krafts maybe thinking that, hey, it's time to turn the page.
Such as, like what? Like what specifically?
Well, I mean, like a lot of that stuff in the articles with Seth Wickersham, that all felt like things that came from the Krafts directly, whether it was Robert or Jonathan.
Leaking stuff on purpose.
Absolutely. I think that and I think it's you know, once again, it's like blaming ownership. It's is going to outlast coaching.
Right.
It's going to outlast GMs. It's going to outlast players. And I think there's a lot of hubris in that building. I think that Tom Brady thinks he's the greatest player ever and always wants to, you know, he spent his entire career trying to prove that. And, you know, in a lot of ways, he has, you know, made a pretty strong argument for it.
Except that people will say, without Belichick, it's like these guys' legacies are like saddled
together
to their necks.
And right. I don't think any of them like it.
Wow.
It's kind of like Jimmy Johnson not liking – no, not Jimmy Johnson, but Jerry Jones not liking that Jimmy Johnson still gets the credit for putting together those teams back in the 90s. And he did.
Right, well, he's an idiot for not liking that, but that's like
but
he's nuts for
– these are hubris. This is filled billionaires.
Right.
And I think they should all – and probably in hindsight, they will all probably, or maybe, admit that this was a halcyon day, or these were halcyon days, and or decades, and we couldn't have done it without each other. But because of their personalities, I think they all want to prove that they could.
Well, this happens in music all the time.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's a great...
Where people are interdependent and they swell to the point where they cannot see that they need the people around them, and it fucks everything up. But I mean, what scenario? Because I remember Shannon Sharp was so adamant, like, this is going to end ugly. And
I think Belichick not only tries to trade Brady, like he gets like almost all the way there, and Kraft is like, "Fuck you," something like that.
Yeah, it's insubordination, right? Like he'll do it just to he's basically going to be sending a fuck you to Kraft by doing that.
Yeah. And he kind of already did by that Garoppolo deal.
Right.
Because he could have got a lot more for him.
Right.
And
I know.
And everybody knows it. And but he wanted to protect Garoppolo. And he wanted to put Garoppolo in a place that he thought he would succeed.
Right, and also he, I think, has a spiteful nature too. I think he was being spiteful.
Oh, and he also loves Kyle Shanahan and Mike Shanahan.
Right.
He loves the Shanahans for some reason. By the way, the Shanahans are probably at least Kyle, at least Mike was pretty much the closest scenario to Bellichek that we can think of in terms of complete power and pretty much a lifetime contract.
Right, and he won 3 Super Bowls with it. Or was it 2. Mike? Did he win 2. All? Did he win all? He 3?
Won 2.
Okay.
Yeah, he won 2. And he remember he was there at the end of Elway's career.
Mm-hmm.
And then he turned over to, find his guy, his way. And it took him a long time to get to Jay Cutler before he was fired. So, I think hubris gets these guys, but it doesn't stop them from having it.
So you think Belichick is going to push to trade Brady?
Brady or some sort of insubordination, even if it's not that specific scenario.
And then Kraft is going to say, fuck you, you're out of here.
Yeah, and it's going to, I think it would be in some weird, I don't think the timing is going to be ideal either.
Right. I see Sharp was predicting that it would happen in the middle of a season. And I think when the lid finally blows off on all this tension, I think it is going to be sudden.
I can see it happening mid-season or happening after.
Right after a playoff run that didn't go well or something.
But after all of the prime coaching candidates are all gone, like in a February.
So that it makes it hard for him to get a job, is what you're saying?
Yeah. Well, yeah, to hire anyone outside of the house. Obviously, they're leaning toward McDaniels,
right?
But like, I think that it's not going to be. It's going to be like a very sudden, uncomfortable end.
I have a feeling, pure speculation, that Belichick is plotting his exit to leave the team more wounded.
Huh.
But then when he agreed to like open his world to Josh McDaniels, whatever, then that made me think maybe not. But the thing that he did with Butler made me feel like this guy is not above sinking the whole fucking ship to prove a point.
I think when you have had a massive amount of control somewhere for a very long time, it gets to that point where you feel like you can do a lot of things. I mean, I think a perfect example of this is Keith Olbermann toward the end of his time at MSNBC, where like the guy was the highest paid guy on the network. He was the highest rated guy on the network. He had a massive amount of power, huge following. And he knew that everything, Bill Simmons is similar scenario too.
Mm-hmm.
Where he knew what button he could push to get himself ejected, and maybe they didn't think they would.
But he knew where the button was,
and they pushed it anyway.
Right. It's very interesting. Well, maybe maybe signing Antonio Brown is another sign of that sense of invincibility that will blow up. I mean, this could lead to worse things. I mean, we don't know.
Could be.
I mean, I guess if it does, they just cut him. I don't know, but like something tells me this guy could be like a bomb going off in that whole locker room.
Thank you for listening to A Little Skeptical. You can leave me a voicemail or send me a message at alittleskeptical.com. You can also find back episodes there and more about me. You can find me on social media at James Brown TV everywhere. You can also find the show at A Skeptical Show everywhere.